When people think about the history of Islam in Australia, they often assume it's a recent story tied to modern immigration. But the truth is far more fascinating and much older than most imagine. Islam has deep roots in Australia, roots that stretch back centuries before the idea of a multicultural nation even existed. Long before British colonization, Muslim traders from Makassar, in present-day Indonesia, were already navigating the northern coastline of Australia. As early as the 1700s, these Macassan sailors came to Arnhem Land in the Northern Territory to trade trepang, sea cucumbers, with the Yolngu people, one of the oldest Aboriginal cultures. This wasn't just economic exchange. There was real cultural interaction. Some Yolngu adopted Islamic dress and rituals, and even incorporated Islamic words into their own languages. It's a remarkable chapter of shared history that predates European settlement. Then, in the mid-1800s, a new wave of Muslim influence arrived, this time from land, not sea. Known as the Afghan cameleers, these men actually came from across the Muslim world. Afghanistan, British India, which includes modern-day Pakistan, and even Egypt. They were brought to Australia for one simple reason: camels. These animals were perfectly suited to Australia's harsh desert interior, and the cameleers were experts at navigating it. With their help, goods could be transported across vast distances, and critical infrastructure projects, like the overland telegraph and inland railways, could be built. These men played a vital role in shaping Australia's outback economy. They also left behind something even more lasting: the first mosques in the country. The Adelaide Mosque, built in 1888, still stands today as a symbol of early Muslim presence. The Broken Hill Mosque followed in the 1890s. These were not just places of worship, they were gathering places, cultural anchors, and silent witnesses to the hardships and contributions of early Muslim settlers. As the decades passed, new waves of Muslim immigrants arrived. After World War II, Australia opened its doors to displaced people and migrant workers from around the world. Among them were Muslims from Albania, Bosnia, Turkey, and Lebanon. During the 1950s to the 1970s, they brought with them their faith, their culture, and a deep desire to build a better future. The Lebanese Civil War in the 1970s and 80s triggered another surge of migration. And by this point, Muslim communities had begun to flourish, particularly in major cities like Sydney and Melbourne. These communities didn't just blend in, they contributed. They built new mosques, established Islamic schools, and open cultural centers. In 1972, Australia's first Islamic school opened in Sydney, marking a milestone in religious education. And as Muslim Australians became more visible, they stepped into roles across business, academia, sports, and politics, becoming part of the national fabric. Fast forward to today, and Islam is one of the fastest growing religions in Australia. According to the 2021 census, about 813,000 people, roughly 3.2% of the population, identify as Muslim. But what's more striking than the numbers is the diversity. Muslims in Australia come from every corner of the globe: Middle Eastern, South Asian, Southeast Asian, African, European, and even indigenous Australians who've embraced Islam. It's a vibrant, multicultural tapestry that defies stereotypes. Of course, it hasn't always been easy. The post-9/11 world brought challenges, with many Muslims facing discrimination and suspicion. But out of that adversity also came resilience. Muslims in Australia have built stronger communities, spoken out in media, engaged in interfaith dialogue, and taken active roles in shaping the country's future. Figures like Waleed Ali Yisai, a prominent TV presenter and academic, and Ed Husic, the first Muslim to serve in an Australian cabinet, are just two examples of many who've helped change perceptions and elevate representation. So when we talk about Islam in Australia, we're not just talking about religion. We're talking about history, resilience, and a community that has helped shape modern Australia. From Macassan traders and Afghan cameleers to today's multicultural society, Islam has always been part of the Australian story, and it continues to be quietly, powerfully, and proudly a vital part of the nation's social, cultural, and spiritual life. Now let's take a closer look at the numbers. According to the 2021 Australian census, there are 392 Muslims living in Australia. That's about 3.2% of the country's total population. It might not sound like a huge percentage, but in real terms, it reflects a vibrant and steadily growing community that is playing an increasingly visible role in Australian society. When it comes to religious identity within Islam, the majority of Muslims in Australia are Sunni. This follows the global trend, where Sunni Islam is the most widely practiced branch. However, Australia is also home to a significant minority of Shia Muslims, many of whom have roots in countries like Iran, Iraq, Lebanon, and Pakistan. It's worth noting that the census doesn't actually ask Muslims to specify whether they are Sunni or Shia, so we don't have exact numbers from official data. But based on community surveys and research, it's estimated that Shia Muslims make up less than 10% of the overall Muslim population in Australia. Beyond these two main branches, there are also smaller Islamic denominations contributing to the rich diversity of the Muslim experience in Australia. Among them are Sufi communities, whose followers often come from South Asian, Turkish, or African backgrounds. These groups may be smaller in number, but their spiritual, cultural, and social contributions are no less meaningful. Together, these communities, Sunni, Shia, and others, form a mosaic of beliefs and traditions, united by shared faith, but enriched by unique perspectives. It's this diversity that gives Islam in Australia its remarkable depth. From Friday prayers at the local mosque to vibrant religious festivals, community service, and interfaith dialogue, Muslims across the country continue to build connections, not just within their own communities, but across the broader Australian landscape. When we talk about Muslims in Australia today, it's important to understand not just the numbers, but where they live and what their everyday lives actually look like. While the Muslim population is spread across the country, it is overwhelmingly concentrated in urban areas, where vibrant communities have taken root and flourished. The largest Muslim population is found in Greater Sydney, home to about 42% of all Muslims in the country. Suburbs like Auburn and Lakemba and Bankstown are well known for their strong Muslim presence, with mosques, halal businesses, cultural centers, and schools forming the backbone of daily community life. These suburbs aren't just places where Muslims live, they're places where identity, faith, and belonging are lived out every day. Moving south, Greater Melbourne is home to about 31% of Australia's Muslim population. Here, neighborhoods such as Broadmeadows, Meadow Heights, and Dandenong have become hubs for Muslim life, offering a rich mix of cultures, languages, and traditions. In the West, Greater Perth houses around 8% of the Muslim population, with significant communities in areas like Thornlie, Mirrabooka, and Beachboro. While smaller Muslim populations can also be found in parts of Queensland and South Australia, the community is most prominent in these major urban centers. So what does daily life look like for Muslims in Australia? It starts, for many, with faith. Daily prayers, or salat, form a cornerstone of religious practice. During Ramadan, the month of fasting, Muslims observe dawn to dusk fasts, gather with family and friends for iftar meals, and attend nightly prayers at the mosque. On Fridays, large numbers of worshippers head to mosques like the Lakemba Mosque in Sydney, one of the largest in the country, for congregational prayers and sermons that bring the community together. But religious practice is just one part of the picture. Many Muslim families choose to send their children to Islamic schools, which offer both academic education and instruction in the Islamic faith. These schools play an important role in helping younger generations maintain a strong sense of identity while excelling in their broader educational goals. Community involvement is also a major part of Muslim life. Across Australia, there are community centers and organizations offering youth programs, women's groups, language classes, counseling services, and charitable initiatives that serve both Muslims and the wider public. Whether it's a food drive during Ramadan or a public Eid festival in the local park, these efforts help build stronger, more connected communities. Islamic festivals like Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha are highlights of the year. These are times of celebration, prayer, and togetherness. Streets come alive with color, markets buzz with activity, and mosques overflow with worshippers dressed in their best. Public events are often open to everyone, Muslim or not, reflecting a deep spirit of inclusiveness and community. And then there are the social enterprises, innovative initiatives that blend cultural values with modern challenges. One standout example is Brotherhood Boxing in Western Sydney, a boxing gym that goes far beyond physical fitness. It provides mentorship, spiritual support, and a sense of purpose for young Muslim men who are trying to find their way in a complex world. It's places like this where tradition and modernity meet, where faith empowers action. So the picture of Muslim life in Australia is not one-dimensional. It's dynamic, diverse, and deeply connected to both faith and society. From spiritual rituals and education to community building and cultural celebration, Muslims in Australia are living lives that are both proudly Islamic and proudly Australian. While Australia is home to a diverse and vibrant Muslim population, it's also important to acknowledge the real challenges many Muslims face across the country. These challenges don't just exist on paper. They affect lives on a daily basis, from how people are treated in public to the opportunities they can access in work, education, and society at large. One of the most pressing issues is Islamophobia. In recent years, anti-Muslim sentiment has been on the rise, and the numbers paint a troubling picture. Between January 2023 and December 2024, Islamophobic incidents in Australia more than doubled. There were 3,009 in-person incidents reported, and disturbingly, online abuse more than tripled, with 366 verified cases. Women and girls were particularly targeted. In fact, they made up 3/4 of all reported incidents and were a third more likely to be physically attacked than men and boys. For many Muslim women, especially those who wear the hijab, just walking through a shopping center or waiting for a train can come with the risk of being harassed or singled out. And this discrimination isn't just limited to isolated moments. It often takes place in everyday environments, workplaces, public transport, schools, hospitals, and even while doing something as routine as grocery shopping. The weight of these repeated experiences can be exhausting and demoralizing, especially for young people who are trying to build a future in a country they call home. Another major area of concern is economic inequality. Muslims in Australia face significant hurdles in the job market. Across all age groups, their employment rates are lower than the national average, and that gap contributes to broader issues, like housing instability and income inequality. When people can't access the same opportunities or face bias during hiring processes, it's not just unfair. It's a systemic issue that requires attention and action. These experiences also take a psychological toll. The constant sense of being judged, excluded, or feared can lead to deep feelings of frustration, anxiety, and isolation. Mental health issues are often compounded by the struggle to find services that understand the specific cultural and religious needs of Muslim clients. At the same time, social integration is a double-edged sword. Many Muslims do adapt well and thrive in Australian society, but for others, it's a difficult balancing act. Negative media coverage, especially when it focuses on isolated criminal acts, can paint entire communities in a suspicious light. This, in turn, fuels misunderstanding, divides communities, and makes integration that much harder. Muslim women, again, face particular challenges. Being visibly Muslim in public, wearing a hijab or modest clothing, can sadly make someone a target. Whether it's verbal harassment, stares, or even physical attacks, these experiences are not just statistics. They're part of the lived reality for many women who want nothing more than to go about their lives in peace and dignity. And finally, there are the legal and policy gaps that leave Muslims vulnerable. In some parts of the country, such as New South Wales, the laws that protect against religious discrimination don't go far enough. Ironically, while specific protections are in place for groups like Jews and Sikhs, the Muslim community often has to fight harder for recognition and equal treatment under the law. These challenges highlight the urgent need for stronger strategies that address discrimination, promote inclusion, and ensure equal opportunities for all Australians, regardless of faith or background. Islam has a long and rich history in this country, and Muslims continue to contribute to every layer of Australian society. But for that contribution to truly flourish, the environment must be fair, respectful, and welcoming. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others who might be curious about the rich history and everyday realities of Muslims in Australia. Your support helps us bring more awareness to stories that often go untold, stories about identity, resilience, and the diverse communities that shape our world. Have thoughts or experiences to share? Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. And remember, understanding each other is the first step to building a more inclusive future. Thanks for watching.